With rich farmlands, a well-developed industrial base, and a good educational system, Ukraine has strong potential. Until recently, the economy was growing rapidly and incomes were rising. But in 2008, the global financial crisis changed everything. The value of Ukraine's currency, the hryvnia, dropped sharply, and the price of steel, Ukraine's main export, plummeted.
In the first half of 2008, steel industry provided 42% of all Ukrainian exports. And when the world demand for steel collapsed, basically it was a huge external shock for the Ukrainian economy.
The country's banking system also found itself in a vulnerable position. Banks were facing a sharp increase in bad loans after the currency lost value. Many bank depositors, spooked by mounting inflation and a weakening currency, panicked and withdrew their money. Faced with a bank crisis, Ukraine turned to the IMF for help. The IMF provided an emergency loan in the amount of $16.5 billion to help the country restore confidence.
The banking system has been very hard hit with all these difficulties, and the authorities have a very comprehensive bank restructuring program supported by the World Bank and ourselves, and they have been making major progress on this. And I think that will be the key, to restore financial stability, to regain depositor confidence, and for the banks to start lending.
Another goal of the IMF program is to put public finances on a more sustainable path. Ukraine currently subsidizes the price of gas, for example, but the direct subsidy to gas consumers is being phased out.
The country has to go through with structural reforms both in the pension sector and the energy sector to be able to make sure that during difficult times like this, that the revenues and expenditures are more balanced.
As Ukraine's Prime Minister, Yulia Tymoshenko, said recently, "You are never popular when you ask a sick person to undergo surgery. But what has to be done, has to be done." Cooperating with the IMF requires a serious budget policy for any country. The government's challenge will be to cut the budget while, at the same time, shielding poor households, which will be the hardest hit by the crisis.
Ukraine does have a good social safety net. It needs to be better targeted, and we are working together with the World Bank to make sure that the most vulnerable are protected as these reforms are implemented.
The government is also adopting a flexible exchange rate regime, which will help cushion the economy against large external shocks.
Ukraine implemented a flexible exchange rate regime, which has helped the country to adjust very quickly. The current account is already showing a surplus. The currency did depreciate sharply, but it has so far stabilized, and this has helped the adjustment process.
Now, there are early signs that the country has turned a corner.
It's too early to tell, but it looks like, as I said before, the country did adjust very quickly with the exchange rate regime, and with now hopefully some stability in the financial sector, going forward we should have more positive results.
For us, it's a very important sign of the flexibility of the IMF. It's part of this new International Monetary Fund, which is very much needed globally and regionally. This flexibility allowed Ukraine and the government of Ukraine to adjust its fiscal policies, budget policies, and monetary policies. And now we are very pleased that these joint combined efforts, together with the IMF, allowed us to see the light at the end of the tunnel.